Hey YouTube, Kamen Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kamen Rider Revice Episode 2. So I thought this was another strong episode, a great continuation from last week. It didn't feel like this was necessarily like a two-parter that was split up into two, but it felt like a really good episode 1 and 2 that kind of gives you sort of a more solid all-around introduction. And as I mentioned last week, I think it was fairly well paced last week. And I think this really continued that. I mean, of course, we had the debut of form right off the bat here with the Hawk double form, which is fine, but, you know, other than that, I thought that it's been pretty well paced. So if you remember last week, Iki decided to give up the driver because he didn't want to do it, just like the other opportunities he had to take him away from the bathhouse. But the Phoenix company wants him to work for them, and they fire this one guy for messing up, and they task Iki's brother with recruiting him. But he doesn't want to help. But he's like, but you're the only one that can work with the demon, and the demon Vice is like, oh yeah, let's totally do it. I want to, you know, save the world and beat up people and stuff. But he's not having any of it. However, as soon as they get a call about an attack, he grabs the driver and he's like, look, we'll talk about the contract later. Obviously, contracts are a big theme of this season, as the whole contract with the demon thing, and then the contract with the driver, and then like a literal contract to work with the people. But he snatches the driver to go help and fight with Vice, and Vice is very much up to his own devices in this episode, because it's basically not long after they start fighting, he like attacks the monster by throwing Revi, which, you know, causes him to be disoriented so that he can start attacking people. And when he does that, his brother tosses him is it the eagle? I can't remember if it's eagle or hawk. I think it's eagle. Whatever, regardless. A bird. Vice stamp. Also has the Kamen Rider double theme. And then, you know, we don't get an explanation behind it. I imagine next week we will with the Megalodon and all that. Not that I necessarily needed one, but this was like very clearly your classic, like, hey, we gotta sell this on toy shelves because it comes with a little holder. But he throws it to him so it brings Vice back to him so they can transform. And we get our first in-show debut of one of the ability forms, which again is this, I can't remember if it's an eagle or hawk. I'm just gonna call it an eagle for this review. But for the eagle double one, and it looks really cool. And both of their suits change. I think that Revi gets the bigger change, obviously. Vice's really just changes the hoodie. Revice's changes more wholly. But I think it looks really cool. I think that the sort of bird head on here is a little bit big for me, but the helmet in general looks really cool. I think most of the helmet designs for these look really nice, and I think it's just really neat. And then they accidentally activate the remix form, which is when they form together to form effectively like a final attack ride or a final form ride of the animal, and they accidentally do that, and then Vice is attacking people again, and unbeknownst to them, he sort of warns the monster, the weak guy, on the opposite side, what to do basically to get a stamp, because this week's story of the week is about this golfer and this caddy. And like, it's funny because when we first meet them, as soon as they're talking to each other, I'm like, okay, we're setting up the classic of the week story. And the caddy's kind of, you know, being taken advantage of by the guy, not treated so well. And he's the original one that contracts with them. But then after the first fight, Vice gets the golfer to contract with them. So I thought it was actually kind of a nice twist, especially for our first sort of classic filler setup episode, you know, because Rider has these generic like setups for their filler episodes or their arcs and stuff like that. And it was kind of a little bit of a nice change of pace, because usually, like I said, when we saw the golfers, I'm like, I instantly knew what was going on. And, you know, you usually have one of the characters that's attacking another character, you know, that's under a contract with a monster. But this one, I like that it was both of them, and then they kind of switched places, and I thought that was kind of a nice little twist on it. And basically, you know, this leads to contracts and conflict. Get it? Because like Affleck. This leads to a conflict between Iki and Vice, because they're like fighting in the bathhouse because he doesn't want Vice basically being a bad demon and doing bad stuff. And so as a result, when the next monster attack happens, Iki is fighting and helping Phoenix without the driver, because he's like, look, if transforming means people are going to be in danger because of you, I won't transform, but I'm going to help any way I can. And Vice gets really flustered and worried, and he agrees to make a contract that basically says, I won't attack people, won't be henshin. You know, I'm unclear whether he was actually worried about Iki, or if he was just shocked that he was, you know, not bluffing, or maybe a combination of both. But basically, they sort of set it up so that we're not going to have every single episode with Vice flying off the handle. And they work together, and it's really, really funny scene where Revive discovers that the shotgun axe is also a shotgun. He's like, oh man, this fires lasers too? And then Vice is like, I want to join in, and he steals the little phone blaster that the Phoenix soldiers have, because that debuts this week. I don't remember if it was shown last week, but, you know, it seems like that's a new tradition in the last 5 years or so, maybe, that we always have like that weird phone device. Although I have to say that this one, the new Samsung Galaxy S Fold 4, which turns into a gun, is probably one of the better looking ones, because usually they're like really obnoxious looking. It's like, yes, hello, this is normal. I really dig that, and I thought it was really funny that he wanted to have a blaster too, and then since they know what the remix is now, they use the remix to turn into the T-Rex form, and they do a T-Rex rider kick, which is awesome. And then, you kind of end off with them, affirming their partnership, and then the golfer and the caddy agreeing to work together. It's not like it was a super in-depth parallel, but I did kind of like the parallel that was drawn between the golfer and the caddy and this sort of partnership that's going through trouble, and them finding common ground at the end, and drawing a parallel to that, to Revi and Vice, of this partnership that's in trouble and finding new common ground. And I like that this episode sort of dealt with Vice's vices, being a demon, and him not immediately being Kumbaya, and it made it for an interesting story. I certainly don't think that this is going to be the end of Vice's being kind of evil. I don't think we're going to get it every episode. I think that was the point of this episode, so that we wouldn't deal with that. But I definitely get a feeling we're going to be doing something later. Again, like I said in the previous episode, I'm almost 100% sure by the end, Vice is going to be full-on good guy. They're going to be super best friends. But I get a feeling there's going to be other little plots and machinations by Vice throughout the series. In fact, I would be disappointed if there wasn't. But I like the way this was handled to sort of put it to rest, like I said, just so that you're not dealing with that every episode. Because I think it certainly makes things interesting. But if it was happening every episode, it would get rather annoying. And like I said, we got the debut for the Hawk double form, which I think looks really good. And I really hope that they stick with what they have so far. I'm kind of eager to talk to the scientist guy, or have Iki talk to him and talk about the inspiration behind the rider designs. But other than that, I really do hope we save any crossover stuff for the anniversary for the dumb movies, and we can just leave this alone. Because right now it's doing a really good job of standing alone. And even though part of me would be happy to leave old rider designs out of it, I have to say it's a really clever way of incorporating it, and I really like the designs. Like, we got to see a little glimpse of Deno from the preview, and that one looks really good, and I really dig the designs and the general concept of it. And like this week, they got the Megalodon stamp, kind of like a purifying thing. It kind of reminds me, in a way, it's not like they didn't purify it in 0-1, but it reminds me of in 0-1 how they would create a progrise key that would be the answer to a certain monster. And this, in a way, reminds me of it, because we're fighting a monster, and then probably next week, we're getting Deno next week, but we got the Megalodon one, which is already like shown up twice in the movie and the Saber special, but it's kind of a nice intro for that. So I think they did a pretty solid job of that, as long as they don't move it too breakneck of a pace. But I'm fairly happy with that. But yeah, overall, I thought this is a very solid episode, and I think it has a really good balance so far within these 2 episodes of sort of humor and story. So like, when it wants me to take the storyline seriously or a character seriously, I am, and I feel invested. But it also has some really funny moments of breaking the fourth wall. Solid episode. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I'm really enjoying the series so far. I hope it continues. But what did you guys think of the second episode? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, if you like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.